Another view of how to save the economy from the former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, who joins us now from Washington. His new DVD is called Ronald Reagan, Rendezvous with Destiny, available at Gingrich Product Icons. GingricProductions.com. All right, Mr. Speaker, first of all, did you see this recession coming? I did not. Did you see it coming?
No, I really didn't. I didn't see the scale of the Wall Street meltdown. I certainly didn't understand how gigantic worldwide the financial mess would be. Now that it's here, though, I think it's important to ask that question and to say, you know, what are we learning out of the last 3 years, from the housing bubble collapsing to Wall Street collapsing to what's happening around the world?
Okay, and I think that's instructive, but I want tonight, because I have you here in a position you're unique, to see if we're going to get out of this thing by this strategy. Look, the folks are hurting. They're hurting a lot. And we can talk theory and we can talk lessons learned, and all of that's important. But I want to know if you think the federal government in the next year, 18 months, can be able to pull us out of this by this massive spending bill. Do you think they're going to be able to do it?
Well, no. I mean, this bill has almost nothing to do with getting us out of the recession. This bill is about politicians paying off local politicians, paying off unions. In one case, Obi wrote in $2 billion for his son's special interest group. I mean, this is entirely a pork barrel bill with very limited impact on the recession. In fact, the Congressional Budget Office said less than 25% of the bill related to stimulating the economy in the first year.
Okay, so does Obama seems to understand that now that some press organizations, not many, most are just rubber stamping because they don't care. They want a big government. They want the Democrats to set up an entitlement society. But I think Barack Obama understands now where he is in history. He's got one shot, as I said. And if he doesn't get a lot of money flowing into the economy quickly, it's going to be very bad for him. So
yeah, I think look, he's very smart, and I think he's beginning to realize that if this bill doesn't get changed dramatically in the Senate, if it doesn't have more tax cuts, if it doesn't shift money out of welfare into real infrastructure and out of political pork barrel into real job development, he's going to have hanging around the entire administration a failed bill by, April or May, and it's pretty rapidly going to become the Obama recession. I mean,
okay,
he has a very brief period to get this turned around.
Doesn't Nancy Pelosi get that? I mean, is she not smart enough to get that, or doesn't care?
Look, Nancy Pelosi represents the big city wing of the Democratic Party, which destroyed Detroit, which is quite capable of taking the entire country down the road the city of Detroit went down. Her view is if you pay off the unions, you pay off the trial lawyers, you pay off the mayors, why are you complaining? I mean, she's taking care of her constituencies. And the fact that has nothing to do with creating economic growth.
But nobody in their right mind could think, and I assume Mrs. Pelosi is in her right mind, that if you have a Detroit situation throughout America, that the Democrats are going to maintain their power. They're not. Look, they're going to get thrown out, including her.
Bill, if you look at the governor of Michigan, there is no evidence that the governor of Michigan has learned anything out of 6 years of economic failure. They raise taxes, they increase bureaucracy, they shift power to the politicians and away from businesses. There's no evidence that 25 years of destroying Detroit has taught the politicians of Detroit anything about how to create a city that grows.
But America's different from Michigan. You know, Michigans are dominated by the labor unions and the big car companies, and the population base is in Detroit. And it's almost like Massachusetts and New York, where there's a stranglehold. Go ahead.
Right. But Nancy Pelosi represents San Francisco, which is an absolute castle of left-wing thinking, very strong labor unions, very powerful trial lawyers. Why would you think that Speaker Pelosi has a clue about how economic growth really occurs, given her background in San Francisco?
All right. Now, Obama takes this bill, 600 pages. I don't even think he read it. I mean, it'd give you a massive headache.
Of course not.
He tries to get it through, but it's not going to get through. I mean, the Senate is not going to go for it. So now what does Obama do? Does he try to, you know, he wants to be the great compromiser. He wants to be Henry Clay. And he wants to be seen as statesmanlike and reaching across. But it looks to me like radical surgery is going to have to be done on this thing to get the money flowing into the private economy.
Well, that's the big challenge he's faced with right now. He has an opportunity, and Senator McConnell and Senator Kyle and others have indicated he has an opportunity to actually work in a bipartisan way in the Senate and to produce a dramatically different bill, which he could then back in conference, and I think he could get the Senate bill mostly adopted in conference despite Speaker Pelosi. Or he can try to fudge it at the margins, pick up 1 or 2 Senate votes from the Republican side, pretend that it's bipartisan, and pass something a little bit closer to the House bill. There are some indications tonight that he's actually going to go for a genuine bipartisan bill, which, as you point out, would be dramatically different than the Pelosi bill.
Right.
And I think would be a victory for John Boehner and the House Republicans.
I want to point out to people that both the Speaker and I are green guys. I mean, we want investment in alternative energy and want all this stuff because we understand national security, all of these things. But right now, it's a crisis economically, and you can't be doing all this pie-in-the-sky stuff. Do that separately. You got to get it into the fabric of the American industry to stimulate it. The Bush stuff didn't work, the checks that went out, and, you know, building up entitlement spending now, it's impossible. All right, I want to ask you about the Ronald Reagan stuff. You put out a DVD about Ronald Reagan. Is this basically to say to people, look what we could have now? What is this?
Well, we thought, and it's going to premiere on his birthday this Friday at the Kennedy Center, Callista and I thought that he was so remarkable at a moment of crisis. He did such a great job of bringing us back from Jimmy Carter's malaise and economic collapse and ultimately defeating the Soviet Empire, that having a 90-minute film that gives you a sense of who Ronald Reagan was, why he was so effective, and what his principles were, that this could be the right time for the country to take a deep breath and look at what a great leader had done to turn America around.
All right, GingrichProductions.com. You can get it there. Mr. Speaker, always a pleasure. Thank you. And here are the results.